Hello, hello. Welcome to my channel, Questioning Thoughts. I'm Inange Kabele. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and comment if you're inspired to. Um, this one, I've been thinking about it a lot. Now, several weeks ago, I was thinking a lot about making this video that I'm making now. And it's about how so-called primitive people around the world are obsessed with fertility. They're obsessed with making babies. In fact, if you've taken like an anthropology course and studied people around the world, it's like most cultures, they're just totally, everything is about bringing new human beings into the world. It's like these cultures organize themselves around bringing new people in and bringing new life. So a woman who is fecund or whatever, a woman who can make many babies is kind of like revered, or a man who can make many babies, the same thing, right? There is this awe and reverence for the ability to bring new humans into the world. There's one culture, and I'm sure there are other cultures, I'm talking about so-called primitive cultures before modern cultures, where there's one that I know of where um, they didn't want more babies. Now, I don't remember all of the details, but when I was in Howard, I took an anthropology course called Magic, Witchcraft, and Religion. And one of the chapters was about an anthropologist who went to Papua New Guinea and studied two very different cultures. The people all are genetically, ethnically the same, but they have different cultures. And the island of Papua New Guinea was separated. I don't remember if it was between north and south or east and west, but in any case, one part of the island had abundant resources, lots of fruit, lots of game, and the other half didn't, and suffered a lot of drought. Food was scarce. Now, the part of the island with abundance, the cultures were more egalitarian. So that means men and women had almost equivalent stations in life. The women, they were chiefs and they were chieftesses, right? The women had a lot of say. I don't remember if they were matrilineal, but they really valued big families and they valued fertility. And of course, they had their sexual mores and their taboos and everything, but basically everybody on the island was happy and got along. On the other half of the island, where there were scarce resources, women were called polluting women. So most men were never able to marry and would live their entire lifetime never touching a woman ever, never having sex with a woman. And then even the men who were allowed to marry were their sex was kind of like regimented, and they were not allowed to have more than, I don't remember if it was one or two kids, and they had a very high infanticide rate, which means as soon as the baby was born, it was killed. On this half of the island, the men and women lived very separately. There were certain pathways or paths that women were not allowed to walk on and that men were not allowed to walk on. So like if a man accidentally walked where the women walked, then he would have to go through this extensive cleansing ritual. And of course, humans being humans, we have our hormones and sexuality and everything. They would substitute women, or they would substitute boys for women. So very much like during the Roman times, most men would have a boy lover, like he would be a teenager or a preteen who would service him. I'm not going to go into the details. There was a lot of stuff, shall we say, milking, stuff like that. But anyway, in this society, women were basically hated and they were considered to be filthy dirty. And so there's this pattern around the world where wherever there are scarce resources, there is high infanticide, high abortion, and women are denigrated. Women are considered to be, second-class citizens or third-class citizens, and there's a lot of misogyny. And when you look at it just from just take a step back, it kind of makes sense because, like in the part of the island where resources were scarce, bringing another mouth to feed in the community could mean the whole community it will just upset the balance, and it could mean starvation for the whole community, right? And the mother's love for her child. If a mother loves her child, she'll do anything for her child. She'll starve herself to feed her child. Typically, men don't do that. There are men who do that, but for the most part, so that's why you have to kind of at the beginning demonize women, and demonize their sexuality, because their sexuality is dangerous because they bring unwanted human beings into the community. It upsets the balance. There's not enough food. There are not enough resources. There's not enough water. Okay, I've established that. Now, think about how many amazing megalithic structures there are all over the world, and they're still being unearthed, right? Obviously, there was a time, or maybe there were several different times during humanity where we had high technology, right? And with that high technology, just like in our day and age, come all of these comforts. So right now we have high technology, we have comfort, we can outsource whatever we want if we've got the means to do so. We have monocropping, we have increasingly genetic engineering, now genetic engineering of human beings, but we have been genetically engineering fruits and vegetables and plants and livestock for millennia. Okay? This is where we are. In times past, that's where we were, but it seems even more advanced. Now, if you can imagine, there are spots in the world where civilization was extremely advanced, and probably they had overpopulation problems, and they probably also had a lot of problems with hedonism and once all your creature comforts are met, what are you going to do? You're going to have fun, and then you have more fun, and then that doesn't satisfy you, and and some people kind of go to extremes, just like with alcohol and drugs and things like that, or gambling. Anyhow, saying all that to say, it looks like in all of those cultures, they experienced, maybe it was one huge worldwide cataclysm, or maybe they experienced their own, maybe there was a nuclear war, who knows? I don't know, like an asteroid hit the world, who knows? In any case, there were remnants of human beings around the world who had to start from scratch. Otherwise, none of us would be here. So all of us have ancestors who had to start from scratch without the technology. I don't care what the tech was. It could have been geotechnology, solar, it could have been wind, it could have been nuclear, who knows? But we have had to start from the very beginning. And those remnants of people kept their origin stories, they kept their mythology, they kept their moral codes. Or maybe they had to salvage, right? All of those societies, like whenever I look at these primitive, so-called primitive societies around the world, and I marvel at the wisdom that they hold, all of them, except for that one that I personally found out about in Papua New Guinea, have this obsession with creating human beings. They're absolutely obsessed with making more humans. And for them, the highest value, one of the highest values, is bringing more humans into the world. But look at us now here. We value limiting the number of new humans who come into the world. And we value comfort, we value titles, we value higher education, we value having things, we value having a good reputation, we value status, we value the ability to freely make money. And I guess that's just a natural consequence of uh, affluence, opulence in some instances, because even as poor as most of the poorest people are in the United States, they live like, emperors compared to, times, ages past in some places in the world right now. So I was thinking about this a lot before this whole, Texas legislation, abortion law, all of this, and people are very emotional, um, and the pendulum, it's like, it just keeps swinging from one side to the other. But those who follow me know that I am absolutely fascinated by cause and effect. I'm fascinated by how legislation affects how we think, how we interact with each other, what we do or what we're not able to do, how legislation affects our freedoms. Um, and I'm beginning to wonder if we're kind of like heading towards that breaking point where something, I don't know, there could be a collapse of the worldwide grid, or the internet goes down, or something happens. Like right now, there's like, oh no, there's a new variant of COVID, and this one for sure, it's going to kill everybody. So I start thinking, my goodness, if it kills that many people, there are people who are engineers, and they're the ones who like run the power plants, the water, the electricity, the gasoline, the people who run the infrastructure, and like the delivery drivers, and like this whole this system that we're living in. If the new variant is just so dangerous and they say it's going to kill most people, then we're going to have to start out from scratch again. And I'm really, that shift will, if it happens, will be so immediate and kind of like catastrophic, and some people might say cathartic, right? That we will have to, just now, let's put it this way, like right now, because of this synthetic mRNA technology that is being mainstreamed under the third letter to the O to the very, you know what I mean. All of our morals are being shifted some more exponentially, like the meaning of life changing, the meaning of death changing, who's worthy to live or die changing. All of this is changing. The value, like we're looking at human beings, and there's somebody with authority who's determining the value of an individual life. But it's kind of easier to determine the value of an individual life in terms of whatever group it belongs to. That's a whole nother video to talk about. But anyway, so just as we're moving into this age where all of our morals are being changed, whether we want them to or not, and the value of life and the value of a human being, if this catastrophe happens, I mean, it could be nuclear, it could be viral, it could be who knows, right? With the pendulum will swing again, and then if we're going to survive as humanity, we're going to have to return to the values of our ancestors, those people we look down on, those primitive people who are obsessed with making more human beings, So I know I'm kind of like, I'm trying to be light about it. I'm being light about it because I really don't want to cry about it. This is absolutely tragic. I think it's absolutely tragic that one of the things that it means to be modern, right? I don't know, one of the outcomes of modernity is those of us who have so much get to, or we're allowed to determine whether somebody else lives or dies, and then we have euphemisms, and, we use semantics, and we talk about things in certain ways to frame them in certain ways, to cause ourselves and other people to look at life in very particular ways, right? So it's like, the son of the Duke, it's like he's going through the village on his carriage, and he looks at goes through the village, and there are fields here and there and little thatch roofed houses or whatever, and he sees the peasants toiling in the fields, and he doesn't see human beings. He sees, you know, he sees tools that benefit him, but he cannot imagine that these people toiling in the fields have the exact same feelings, um, bodily sensations, aches, pains, thirsts, hunger, inspiration, what do you call it, like awe of beauty that he has, because, the way he was raised and the way he sees himself is that his life has value, and his life is important because he has money and status, and therefore that makes him more human than the rest of them. In fact, he doesn't even consider that they are human. So I think that we, I'm just putting it out there. Who am I, right? Who am I? Um, I'm sharing my thoughts. I'm sharing my questioning thoughts about things. I look, even in my lifetime, I've watched the conversation, meander and change and transform, conversations about different groups of people and their worthiness. And, why do we care about a person's life based on who they were killed by? Why do we care about a person's life based on who they were born to? And it's like this this and everybody has a very strong opinion, and me, I'm doing my best to not have a strong opinion either way, because I find strong opinions to be blinding, and we are living we're living in an age of like exponentially great danger, but then exponentially great promise. Um, because we do have the technologies now to really transform our lives. But it can't be we can't take a top down approach, and we can't approach it from a place of fear. We've got to come from the heart and a place of like possibility and love. And so, yeah, I think at the end of the day, like life, um, life, there's so much potential that has been snuffed out um, because of our fears. And that's really tragic. Anyway, that's all I have to say for now. If you've made it thus far, thank you so much for hanging in with me. And again, look at the remnants, the primitive people, our ancestors. Look around the world. Um, this like love of life and this obsession with life, and those people have like the physically the most difficult lives, and they have to toil for everything that they've got, but they have this deep, deep, profound love for each other and for the natural world and the abundance of the world that so many of us can't even imagine, because we're born into this get up, this setup, and so few people have the opportunity to really appreciate life. So that's it. Until the next time, thank you for hanging in with me.